Acts chapter 17. We're starting in verse number 16. And we're just going to bring several thoughts out. We're not going to do an exposition per se on the passage, but we're going to do quite a bit of it, eat up a lot of it. Now, while Paul waited for them at Athens, his spirit was stirred in him when he saw the city wholly given to idolatry. Therefore disputed he in the synagogue with the Jews and with the devout persons, and in the market daily with them that met with him. Then certain philosophers of the Epicureans and of the Stoics encountered him, and some said, "What will this babbler say?" Others, some, "He seemed to be a setter forth of strange gods, because he preached unto them Jesus and the resurrection." And they took him and brought him into Areopagus, saying, "May we know what this new doctrine whereof thou speakest is? For thou bringest certain strange things to our ears. We would know therefore what these things mean. For all the Athenians and strangers which were there spent their time in nothing else but either to tell or to hear some new thing." Then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill. And by the way, Areopagus is the exact thing as Mars Hill. The actual name of the temple, Areopagus, is the name they had for the council. It also was located towards what they called Mars Hill. So you could use both of these interchangeable and not hurt anything, because one's dealing with the council, one's dealing with the location. But guess what? You're dealing with the same thing. If you were in Athens at the time and you mentioned Mars Hill or Areopagus, either one, do you know what people would say? They know exactly what you're talking about. Okay? So we're dealing with the council, these intelligent philosophers. He's not preaching to common people. He's preaching to the intellect, to the learned. We're going to get to that in a few minutes, and you'll be amazed how close they resemble some of ours. Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things you are too superstitious. For as I passed by and beheld your devotions, I found an altar with this inscription: to the unknown God, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship, him declare I unto you. God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, and dwelleth not in temples made with hands. Neither is worship with man's hands, as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things, and hath made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bonds of their habitation, that they should seek the Lord, if happily they might feel after him, and find him, though he be not far from every one of us. For in him we live and move and have our beings, as certain also of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. For as much then as we are the offspring of God, we ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold or silver or stone, graven by art and man's devices. And the times of this ignorance God winked at, but now commandeth all men everywhere to repent, because he hath appointed a day in the which he will judge the world in righteousness by that man whom he hath ordained, whereof he hath given assurance unto all men, that in that he hath raised him from the dead. And when they heard of the resurrection of the dead, some mocked, and others said, we will hear thee again of this matter. So Paul departed from among them. Howbeit, certain men clave unto him, and believed. And among them was Dionysius the Areopagite, and a woman named Damaris, and others with them. Now, when you look at this city, we're in Athens. Now, you have to remember, years gone by, Athens was the commercial city of the world. Okay? They influenced huge parts of the population of the world by commercial, by export. Days had gone by and Athens is no longer a great trade city. People's not bringing all their goods there to trade one and another. It's no longer what you'd call a necessary port. And I'm not talking on the coast, people. I'm talking it was an area that people could come to, trade their goods and their wares, and it was commercially successful. People, you got to remember, Alexander the Great, when he came along, he was from a Greek background. Athens is in what country? Greece. So we know that they had an impact on the entire world. Well, Alexander the Great's not there anymore. The Roman Empire is in play. Athens is no longer the industrial commercial center of the world anymore. So they took upon themselves to be the philosophers and the theologists that would change the world. We won't do it by the goods we make. We'll do it by the doctrines that we teach. Now you have to understand, in 800 AD, we find that Greek mythology comes on the scene. 800 BC, here is Greek mythology. Zeus, Hercules, and we could go on down the line. And the thought there was they became a religious center. And being a religious center, they could still control the world through religion. The Roman Catholic Church does that today. People, I'm going to tell you right now, the most powerful people in America, I'm talking about religiously, is the Pope. If you don't believe me, let the Pope declare something and watch what people do. He's got power around the world. South and Central America, if you ever go there, you drive down the road and you'll see these little idols on the side of the road. You can actually stop and pray at these idols just like you're praying in a church house. And they're little old, and they will be fenced in areas, and you can go and leave your offerings there, and you can sit there and pray and have a good time and get back in your car and go on down the road. To receive goods from the government in most Central and South American countries, you have to go to the Catholic Church to get it. So religion exported does have influence and power. How many of y'all know anything about Greek mythology? Just if you know Zeus. How many knows what I'm talking about? It's still around today, isn't it? Have you ever heard of Hercules? Yeah, we've heard of him. Take us this, and we go on down the line. These are things we know about. And everybody's favorite woman. Everybody loves a woman with the snakes, don't they? And what is her name? Medusa. Go ahead and say that out loud. You can. How did everybody know Medusa? How do you know that? That was 800 years BC. But we still know about it in 2020 AD. So don't stop and think religion doesn't have impact and power, because we still know it. 500 AD, the Stoics come on the scene. And with the Stoics, we begin to see the intellectual philosophy. Aristotle comes on the scene. I mean, him and all his philosophies. I mean, I love it when you're talking to somebody and they refer to Socrates. Yeah, I read all of Socrates' writings. Yeah. Y'all just better be glad I know who he is. I know his name. I know he's a philosopher, and that's about all I know. Why? Because what I've read about him never did impress me. But at the time that we're dealing with, Aristotle and Socrates were intellectual giants. Don't we have them on the scene? A scientist makes a statement and everybody, whoo, did you hear what he said? Yeah, I heard Stephen Hawking said there is no God. Wonder what he thought 30 seconds after he closed his eyes here. Opened his eyes in hell and realized there is a God, there is a heaven, and there is a hell. So, preacher, how do you know that? Because he didn't go upwards. You don't deny God and make it to heaven, people. He denied everything about God, his existence. We're nothing but a bunch of animals, and animals, just like we die, we bury them in the ground, and that's it for that animal. I guarantee you 30 seconds after he closed his eyes, he wished he'd have repented and got saved. Guarantee it. But he's past that stage. He's like the rich man in hell. If you notice, a rich man in Luke chapter 16 never one time said, I want to repent. Why? His fate was already sealed. What did he cry out? Send Lazarus, get the tip of his finger and cool my tongue, for I'm tormented in this flame. Then the last thing he said, send Lazarus back, for I have 5 brethren, lest they also come to this place of torment. And Abraham looked at him and said, if they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded that one rose from the dead. People, I'm telling you, we live in the generation exactly that Paul is preaching to. It's the generation we see today. God had given them time. He had given them an opportunity to prove if their theology would work. I'm getting ahead of myself. We won't get to this afternoon. But go to verse number 30. In the times of this ignorance, God winked at. People, let me tell you what that verse really means. God let them continue in idolatry, hoping they would realize it was not working. God has never commanded everybody, repent or I will kill you now. God doesn't force himself on anybody. But he had tried his best to get a hold of Athens. And the Athenians that was there never got a hold of God. So God sent them Paul. People, I don't mean to make this carnal, but if you read Paul, Paul is like Delta Force and the Navy SEALs all rolled into one. He loved action in combat. Preach, how do you know that? Getting ahead of myself, but he teaches them in the synagogue and he gets in them in the marketplace. You didn't have to go looking for Paul. Paul came looking for you. Can you imagine that today? I'm going to preach to you on the street corner. We could do that in America years ago. Preach on the street corner now and find out how fast you get escorted out of town. One of the last ones we heard, he passed away several years back. He used to preach downtown Shreveport around the courthouse. He had a megaphone and he walked around that building all day preaching. And I'm going to tell you something right now, he preached pretty good. Not heard another one since. Why? Because it's not wanted in our society. God said, I gave you a chance, but you know what you found out? Your religion has made you morally and spiritually bankrupt. We are today. How many of y'all believe we know God better now than they did in the 1930s? How many of y'all think we got better morals now than they did in the 1930s? What's the problem? God's still God. But we've bought doctrine that has literally bankrupted us spiritually and morally. How many of y'all know people that are shacked up? When we grew up, everybody in town, when somebody would move, we were in a small town, and people would move in there that were living together. Everybody in town knew it. It was a disgrace. Now it's almost as if marriage is the disgrace. Why in the world you don't get married for? You can just live together. You get more in Social Security if you just live together. But it's wrong. Oh, that ain't the God I have. My God understands my position. I want to be sure that you understand he doesn't. Well, preacher, that's not very popular. You'll find out from Paul preaching here, this isn't very popular, but he's still right. It's still right. Let me give you 4 things out of the passage that